the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. Hey everyone, David Nagel. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast. Today, we have the author of Prove Them Wrong, One Immigrant's 10-Year Journey from Bankrupt to Millionaire. This is a book. We're going to put a link for the book down in the show notes here so that you can all get a copy. It's a phenomenal book. And Hector, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, David. Thank you for everybody listening. I'm excited to be here.
Tell everybody your name and what you do.
My name is Hector Quiroga. I am an immigration lawyer. We immigrated in 2000. Didn't speak English at the time. I put myself through college, and here I am.
And so, in the idea of immigration, you're really helping people find a dream, right?
That's right. I think through the process, I learned that giving somebody an opportunity, taking a chance on somebody taking a chance on me, I really fell in love with the process. And that's what really pointed me towards becoming an immigration lawyer, helping others find that green card, that citizenship, whatever it is they need to really apply it and make just a much better life for themselves.
Yeah. I think, I shouldn't say everybody, because that wouldn't be true at all, but many people don't really understand what the story of an immigrant is, coming from another country, wanting to come to America and seek out a dream and a better life for themselves. So would you just take a few minutes and tell your story to everybody that's listening? Because it's such an inspirational story.
Thank you. Yes. As I was mentioning, I came when I was 17 years of age when I came. This is January of 2000. I come in and I'm coming to learn English and then go back and join my family. My dad is an attorney. I was going to go to law school at the time. I just finished high school. And so I came here and, I started and I was doing English as a second language. I really honestly just knew, banana, apple, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was kind of the extent of my English. And so I started my classes in a very basic level, like just level A. I was below, it was A, B, 1, 2, 3. So I was below 1, right? That's kind of what it is. And one of the things that I started noticing right away, I said, look, I want to take the TOEFL exam and I want to go to college. And I want to do this like by the end of the semester. And so the first thing I started learning from my professors who were PhDs was like, you can't do that. That's too soon. You're not going to be college level. There are people here that takes 5 years. There's 6 levels after A and B, and each takes a semester. It'll take years before you can actually take the exam. And so it starts becoming this sort of story of being told you can't. No, you can't do this. No, you can. Or you have to follow certain paths, right? Like you have to follow a path. And so when I went to open my law firm, I was told you can't do that. You have to go and have experience with another lawyer. You can't just open a law firm out of law school. These type of stories keep being told. And I remember just later on as time, and I remember reading books like Juice Square, for example, which tells you, no, you can have a quantum leap without necessarily following certain paths. You can create your own. But back then it wasn't. So I started studying. I started studying very, very hard. And I take the test and
Wait a second. One second. So with the idea behind you couldn't take the test, was that because you didn't speak English?
The test, what would qualify me for English, being at an academic level where I could sit down in college level classes. I wanted to eventually go to college. And so I wanted to have an academic English. Now I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be a lawyer. I feel like I was born to be a lawyer. I always knew it. I always wanted to be a lawyer. My parents didn't want me to be a lawyer. They wanted me to be something else. And I was like, no, I want to be a lawyer. So when I come to the States and I say, not only do I want to go to college, I want to be an attorney, the discourse was very much no. In the US, it was no, you can't. Your English is not good enough. It's expensive. It takes 8-9 years to become a lawyer, and then there is not a lot of Latinos that are lawyers, right? I think it's less than 3% are Latinos, and so and what about your first generation? I just kind of came, and so
how long did it take you to learn how to speak English well enough to be able to take the test?
So I flunked the first time. That's what I was getting at. I took it and I didn't pass it, but my points were very close. So we're talking about this is about 4 months in. I'm almost there. And I took another, then I moved to Spokane, Washington. I went to the community college. I took another semester through the summer. I took it and then I passed. So when you look at on and on, we're talking about 6 to 8 months of just complete immersion, of completely just being able to do this for something that I was told it was going to take, at least 3 years to complete. Now, I did go crazy on this. I all of my friends spoke English. I completely just narrow my way. One of the things that I start seeing, especially as a Latino, I started working at to support myself. I had a work permit. I was supported by washing dishes at the dorm at the University of Texas. And so it's very interesting because there was a very much, there was the Latinos, there was the African-American, and there was the white. And I come to the lunch, just as the people who work so they were the workers of the dormitorium and the cafeteria. They would all just go with their own groups automatically. Nobody was telling them. There was no requirement, but I just saw that. Now, I didn't want that because I didn't want to speak Spanish. I was trying to learn English to pass this exam. So I would go on the other groups, but I wasn't welcomed. Like, it was kind of like, why are you here? What are you trying to prove? And then the guys that were Latino, Hispanic were very much like, what are you trying to prove? They don't like us. Why don't you? And so it was a very interesting, and this is like kind of the life of the immigrant, right? We kind of come in and you start seeing things right, very, very quickly. So I come from a family of attorneys. The color of my skin is fairly white, and I'm kind of come from a well-off family. Overnight, I was a minority. Overnight, I didn't speak the language. Overnight, I wasn't from those groups. And so it was very interesting because I went from that almost overnight to be, no, you can't be a lawyer. And it was interesting because there were assumptions that were being projected upon me by people who were very educated, like the teachers were PhDs. They were telling me, you can, it's going to take forever. And English, oh my gosh, you're going to be a lawyer now. You have to do a bachelor's degree and then you have to go to law school. It's just going to be, it's very, very hard. They were discouraging. And so that was what happened. So I passed the test. And finally, I go into the community college. I'm taking liberal arts. I learned, didn't know this, that in Colombia and most of the Latin American countries, you finish high school and you go straight up to law school. And it's a 5-year law school track instead of bachelor's and then law school. So I didn't know. I mean, I was like, I want to be a lawyer. No, like, no, you got to pick a major. You can't just go to law school. You have to do this first. So it was very difficult. So I'm like, fine, whatever, I'll do. What's the closest thing? They said, well, you can do like a pre-law thing. You can do liberal arts. And so this was hard to explain back home because, I'm telling my dad, I want to be a lawyer, but right now I'm doing arts, liberal arts, right? Like to them, that just, what is he doing, right? It was just really off. But I just continue. I started going to college. This is where I meet my wife. I talk about our relationship quite a bit in the book. And so, again, she's from Spokane. She doesn't speak Spanish. And, we're very immersed. And my skills started picking up. I'm able to transfer later on. I go to Gonzaga for my undergrad. I pick economics and political science. I do very, very well. I get honors in an academic achievement at Gonzaga. So then I go sit down for the LSAT. And so when I sit down for the LSAT, Casey, my wife, is also a lawyer. So we both sit we graduated at the same time. So we sit on the same room. We are presented under same test conditions. We both have very good grades. So I sit, she sits next, a few people down. And then the LSAT scores come back. She gets in and I don't. So I was privy to the exam and to my answers and to her exam and her answers. I was able to compare the two. And there were about 180 questions on this exam, David. And Casey had 5 answers more correct than I did. That's the whole difference was 5 answers.
Okay.
And in this exam, if when I multiply it, when we looked at it and multiplied the time, when I said, okay, if it took me 3 to 5 seconds to translate a question on my mind, just to I don't know the meaning of this word, or I would have lost at least an hour of the exam, which could be account for a whole section. I would have been completely wiped out. So I felt like, wow, this exam really was very, very hard, especially for a non-native speaker, which could account why we're talking about 3% of Latinos just can't seem to really get past this. So I'll tell you what, I went crazy. I went studying. I had a job during the time, but I would call I hired private tutors, and I worked really hard for a year. And then I took the exam again. And to my surprise, I did worse. I actually had my score went down. I tried it again for 6 months. I tried it again. I went in and I just tied my second score. I couldn't really seem to get any better. And I'm telling you, I study, I apply myself. And it got to the point where Casey was about to enter second year law school. And I was coming back I was working in an insurance company. I would come back from an insurance company at night and I see her reading constitutional law and torts and, civil procedure. And you feel this sort of sense of like, gosh, that's what I want, but I can't. And so start getting this sort of dissatisfaction inside. But there's one thing I did see that scared me even more. And that is Casey is one of those kids that would sit down in class and would remember everything. And she was good and she had a 4-point straight and she would just take a note and then she was just good and she would apply herself. Yeah. And I saw her studying the first year of law school. I saw her studying so much more than when we were together in undergrad. I really saw her applying. And I thought, man, when the grades come, she's going to do great. Well, first year grades came up. Turns out she was like, I think I'm going to lose my scholarship. And I'm going, why? And so my GPA it's not that good. And I look at it and I go, wow. So in law school, they curve your grades. And so you're like really like against everybody. And so when you get an A, you're like the top 2 or 3 of the class. And then it comes down from there. And so I was like, okay, here is a native speaker. Here is somebody who applied herself because I saw it. She's reading everything. She's going to class. She's taking notes. If I get in, I'm going to be wiped out. Like this is a problem. So I had that. Okay. So finally I said, I got to find another solution. Clearly Gonzaga, which is the same law school, I've applied I applied like 4 times and then I appealed like 3 times. And then I applied to at least 7 different places and I was denied because of the LSAT score.
Yeah.
Gonzaga, I went and I finally said, hey guys, I went to your school. I had an academic degree. Why? Right? Like, why can I not? Would you just give me a chance? Would you just give me a chance? And so I went through appeals process and all of this. And they said, look, we just don't think your English is going to make it. We just think that it will be unethical to allow a student in who will not pass the bar exam on the first try. And then I learned that that's how law schools get graded, right? It's like what percentage of your class pass the bar exam on the first try? Which I always thought it was weird because I'm like, well, can I not take it a second time? Like, I don't understand, a lot of people take the bar exam. No, we want first time. So I figured out they won't let me in. So I started applying to a lot of different law schools. And there was a law school in Michigan that said, Hector, you want to come in. So I go to East Lansing. I start at the law school over there. So I had to leave Casey. Casey I had two kids that I raised. They're my children, but at the time they were hers. And so I had to leave them behind to go to Lansing while Casey was going to law school as well. But now I know, okay, these guys are going to give me a chance. So I cannot. And I really went to work on this. I mean, I locked myself on that in the place I was living, close to the dorms, and then the library. And I just wouldn't go. I would only go to class and come back. And I think it was the most intellectual, vexing experience, even more difficult than learning English. I mean, it was. I put my nose down, and so I worked really, really hard. And then the grades come out. And grades come out, and I rocked the house. I mean, I really did have just about, and so I have like an A on constitutional law, A's on contracts. And now with these grades is when I go back to Gonzaga Law and I go and I say, look, you told me you didn't think my English was good enough. How is number one on all of these classes for you? Are you still gonna tell me that it's not good enough? So they go, fine. So I transfer back to Gonzaga as a second-year law student, and then finish my career there. But being denied 7 times, being told no, and it just kind of becomes a lot of the immigrant thing. Now, one thing I'm learning is that is that law of cause and effect, or there is two sides to the law of polarity, right?
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity. One opportunity is that because you're told no so many times, you also see a lot of opportunity that I think sometimes, U.S. born and U.S. living individuals don't see, right? Like
that's true. That's 100% correct.
Like to me, it's like, why wouldn't you go to school, right? Well, what do you mean? Oh, it's really expensive. Yeah, but I can get student loans, no? There's a way to finance it. I mean, there's a way to do it. When you go to in South American countries, like if you don't have how to pay for the school, you don't go to school. I mean, there is no financial aid. There is nothing, right? It's just like, wow. So the book talks about bankruptcy and how I got out of student loans, right? Because I definitely got into a lot of loans. My wife had loans, which is we're just pretty sad on that. But I can see just the fact that I can even open a law firm just by graduating from law school. That to me was just an opportunity. It was a gift. And so many individuals, I think they were just full of fear. They don't want to do it because you can talk yourself out. You need money, or you need connections, or you need time, or you need or you need experience.
But I also think that they're not as uncomfortable with their life as you were motivated to come here from a situation that you wanted to make better, right? So there was a different reason that you had versus the average person that lives in the United States. The people are way too comfortable, right? And they don't know what it's like to not have the easy life that most people have here to motivate them to really want to work as hard as you. I mean, you put in a tremendous effort to get the result. It's not like, oh, this just came easy. You had a free ticket. You really worked.
I went to work, and I think it's just really one thing that happened. Again, the book is prove them wrong, right? There was this sort of like energy that would just be, I'll show you, right? And it would just make me mad. Things like, well, you just met me. You just met me 10 minutes ago, and you had no problem telling me I can't be a lawyer. How is this even possible? You just met me. There's no way you have formed an opinion that quickly, right? And so that really fuels you. And that's the part that I think, again, that sort of low polarity, that it was very discouraging, but at the same time was feeling this thing. And it motivated me to show to myself, really, just like, can I really do it, right? And so, yes, but the work was there. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think once I got out, the book kind of starts when it doesn't tell you about the law school. It doesn't tell you a lot of the stories we just talked about. It's not in the book. That's
why I asked you to tell the story.
Yeah. But then it kind of starts with, okay, I graduated from law school. And one of the things that I because I was so focused on doing it and proving them that I can do it, I get this law degree, right? And so they're like, yep, you're a lawyer. And I was kind of lost. Like I was really like, all of the, for what I know, for the last decade, it was like 9 years fighting to learn English and to be a lawyer. And now that I'm a lawyer, I'm like, okay, is this it? Like, now what? Like, now what? Right? Like, I didn't know. And this has happened, right? 2009. Casey graduated in 2008. This is really when the whole real estate market collapsed in the US, and just financial markets are failing. It's very hard to get a job. So I come out of this, and really, now that you're a lawyer, you just, what am I supposed to do? Like, go sue some people? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't, you know, I just didn't know. So,
well, they don't teach you. They don't teach you how to have a business, right? They don't teach you anything about that when you're in law school.
There's no practice management. There's nothing. So what they hope is that, you know, you take the basics, right, and then you maybe have more affinity to one subject or another, but you don't take all the subjects. And then what happens in most law schools, and I think students understand this, is like there is some electives that you can take, but the electives also have to match your schedule. So sometimes you end up taking classes that you actually didn't care for, like oil and gas. Like, that was the only one that fed on that schedule for me. So I wasn't able to take the classes I wanted. So, you know, you kind of graduate and you're a general practitioner, right? You're kind of generally practitioner. And so I come out, and the economy is collapsing. Casey had taken a bankruptcy class, and she liked bankruptcy. And so she said, I'll show you what I learned. And again, we're talking about from textbook case law to actually learn how to file schedules and the math, the practice of it. Okay. And we say, you know, we did a calculation, and we said, basically, look, it's taking this much time to get a job because it was so hard during the time for a lawyer. If we just invest the same time in just opening our own shop, I mean, it's going to be 40 hours here or there. Maybe we'll just put it in here. And I went to work on this firm, and I was putting, listen, there's 168 hours in a week. I feel like I was putting 168. Like, I was just working and pushing and working and pushing. And the books describe this. We were just struggling. And then we just couldn't make our payments. I mean, or lose student loan payments. It was $4,000 each. So we had to come up with $8,000 on the student loan payments to make it. We were just completely underwater. And, you know, we defer, we did these things, but the debt kept growing, and we just couldn't do it. And so we decided to file for bankruptcy. Now, bankruptcy you don't discharge student loan debt on bankruptcy typically. So what we had to do is we just file to at least put our creditors at bay for, you know, the other things, and then just kind of come out of that and see if we can come up with a plan, a repayment plan of some kind.
Right.
So, but what
you didn't become a millionaire when you got your law degree, right?
No, but no. It took some time after that. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, so we're gonna just study and we're gonna learn. And so we basically learn on our own banco. we were that broke that we couldn't hire a lawyer. We caught all the cable TV, we caught all of our expenses. I was taking the trash, I was doing the dump myself. Well, we just kind of went into really this big cut. And it just kind of like, then kind of started me in the face. It's like, yeah, but there's a point where you have to raise your income. I mean, you can cut so much, but there's a point where you just can't, it's just not even efficient. So, but it took me 5 years. And so I got really good at systems and policies and procedures. I got really good at knowing, okay, if I do this, it'll make my job way faster and more efficient down the road here. So I created all of these efficiencies, and I was really good at it. But I had this whole issue of I was really, really inexpensive. So I was really happy because I could like simply get clients, right? So I was doing a whole Chapter 7 bankruptcy for $400 to $600 when the going rate was like $1,200. So I was doing it for a lot less. And I was marketing Craigslist at the time. That's kind of what was at the time. And I was bringing all of this business, and I would go and with my clients, when you file Chapter 7, there's something called a meeting of creditors. You have to go and meet the creditors. Well, these meetings are scheduled. They schedule like 20 people at the same time. And so you get to see all of these 20 people show up with their lawyers, and you can kind of compare a little bit. So I would come with 6 or 7, right? They were meeting of creditors when I had 9, and then another lawyer had 1. It was very much like, so this really fueled my ego. Like, oh, I know how to bring business. So business is not a problem. What I didn't realize is that I was basing the wrong price. And this was coming from somewhere. Like this was coming from somewhere. It took some time. I was 5 years into this and I was struggling, man. I mean, we were bringing about, between her and me, about $38,000 a year after all the expenses. Wow. For 2 lawyers, it was just horrible. And we had kids, we have Casey had 2, we have now 5 together. So that's 7. But, not my baby is a 3-year-old, so she wasn't then. But at any rate, we were struggling, and I ended up telling her that, look, if I don't turn this around very, very soon, I think I'm just gonna quit. I think I'm gonna go teach Spanish or something. Like, and then for somebody who just struggled so much to get to college, to learn English, to get to the LSAT, like I was born to be a lawyer, all of these things, for me to even started to go, I don't know, man, I kind of messed up here. This is not good. And the prospect of, we estimate our debt with all the with the student loans and all the accrued interest and deferments and all that, it grew up to almost $500,000. So we had $500,000 negative plus basically no income. And so do I close the firm? What do I do? And this is when Casey, she took a CLE, continuing education class that she needs to do, continue good education to just continue with her degree. We have to do that every year. So she went and we picked this class or this seminar because it was the cheapest, like always. We just pick up the cheapest one, and that's the one she went to because we needed to save money. So she goes, and there is this practice management advisor, which is Arjun Robbins, right? And so she meets Arjun, and
let me just interject here, right? So yes. So Brandon will make sure that he puts the link down to my interview with Arjun Robbins that I did a couple of years ago. Arjun was a client of mine when you went to the CLE class. He was trying to learn how to build a business called How to Manage a Small Law Firm, and I was coaching him at the time that you went to that class.
Oh, that's awesome! Yes. Well, Casey went, and so This was a very dark time for Casey. I mean, her grandma had passed, or dog had passed. I mean, she was, I think, on the verge of depression. She had a miscarriage. I mean, this is a bad time for her.
Yeah.
And she comes from this seminar, and she is pumped up. I'm thinking, what happened? Like, I'm like, wait, what? Like, you couldn't get out of bed. You couldn't get out of we couldn't get in the car to go for the drive. And she's coming back and says, you don't understand. There is 7 parts to a law firm. And we have to build these and build these. It's like building a train. It's like building a machine. And the machine pulls you. We keep pushing the machine, but the machine is supposed to pull us. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like, okay. So listen, I was so beat down at this point that I said, this one thing I haven't done is fine, whatever. Listen, I've been trying for 5 years. I've tried everything. It hasn't been work ethic. I've tried. If somebody knows something different, sure, I'll listen. And she goes, but we have to go to Miami to see this guy. I'm like, what? And we're like corner to corner. I mean, like Spokane, Washington to Miami. We're talking about, and I'm like, but it's Miami. And I haven't even had, Casey and I at this point, we're married for about, 6 years, but we've been together pretty much since I came. So I was like, I haven't been able to travel with her ever. I go, Miami, that sounds fun. Sure, let's do it. And so we patched together credit cards. And I remember like paying with like different ones, like, pay $300 here and $200 there and $500 here. Like we couldn't even pay a hotel in one single hit. We had to kind of do that. And I traveled to Miami and I meet Arjun's people, and I kind of described that in the book. And then I meet Arjun. And in that trip, I think I still was very much like, who is this guy? What did he really tell her? Like, what is this about? And so he listens, and there was a conversation about sales, and I'm like, I mean, my attitude and my ego was just all over the place. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's gonna teach me how to sell. Like, okay, I already have like 10% of the Spokane market. I know it. I know how to sell. That's not my problem, right?
Yeah.
But he got me to Miami. So then there was the time to sign up. I remember the rent on our office. We had a tiny office. We had 600 square feet. We were like 580 square feet, and we were paying out $600 for it. This is Spokane real estate back in the day. So I'm like, and then we go, he has a monthly fee of about $1,200. And I'm like, that's 2 times my rent. Like, this guy is crazy. And what is he talking about? So we're here, whatever. I go, fine, we'll sign. We sign up, come back, and there's some calls with his team and it happens. And then the next LQM, the quarterly meeting comes in. I go to Arjun, and now he has these exercises on sales, and they call it the Thunderdome. And so he has the Thunderdome set up, and they say, hey, if anybody has any volunteers that believe they can sell, we like to see you. We like to. And of course, I'm like raising my hand. I'm like, all right, time to shut this down. I'm going to show this guy what this is about. I raise my hand. You know, they bring us to the back. Who wants to go first? I'll go first. And I'm just really like, I'm just that
excited. Yeah.
So we go through this exercise, and you know, it goes horribly wrong for me. I mean, it just, you know, there is screaming, and you know, I'm supposed to sell him this toy from China, and I'm begging him to buy it. Buy it. You want this? You need this? You want him? And he's just screaming, and it's dark, and it's just, he set it up. I described the whole thing on the book as good as I could. And then he's like, you're done. You couldn't sell it next. And then the next person goes, and then I think there's a couple participants later. One of them actually is able to sell him the toy. And I'm really like, wait. And so, you know, as lawyers, this is like 11 p.m. This is only to the people that go. So typically we break for dinner, and then after dinner, people at dinner drink. And so there's alcohol here. There's just, I was very confused in the exercise, because I'm like, is he drunk? Because this is the first time I really see Arjun on an exercise setup, right? And he was not drunk. He actually had control of the whole thing. But because I didn't know better, I was like, what hit me here? And I do remember that night just sitting, that when I went up to the hotel room, and it was like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm thinking, why were they able to sell him and I wasn't? Is it personal? Like, did he just not like me, and that's why? Like, why did this happen? And then the next day, when we come in, like at 8 a.m., he asked the people that went on the Thunder to come onto the mic, and he basically is giving us a lesson. And he goes, who came first? I came first. And so he goes, so this is in front of his membership. At the time, we're about 300 people. And that's like 800 people. He's grown a lot. But he, you know, he's explaining to me why. And then he started telling me, right? It's like, you were begging me. And then it just, I kind of dawned into me, like, the whole day we were explaining how you should set an agenda, and you should confirm the time, and you should you know, follow a very specific process. And I didn't follow any of it. I just, basically the whole day, it's like I didn't pay any attention at all, right? I was like, yeah. I was just like, you need this, you need this, you need this. And we started really determining that I was just begging the guy for the sale, which is pretty much what was happening over here. It's just that I was the cheapest in town. That's
Right.
why I'm selling. And we determined, and then through working with his team later, masterminds, that there was a big sort of self-esteem problem. And there was something that came up that I never had talked about. And that had to be, you know, my sexual abuse story. I was sexually abused as a child. And I was told by my parents never to talk about this. This was never to be talked about.
Sure.
You know, and I think it's a very Latino macho kind of thing. My dad was really like, please don't, you know, he didn't say please. He says, don't talk about it. The important thing is that you don't really like it. So just, this doesn't have to be talked about. And there was never anything else. It was hard for me as a kid, and even, you know, just in looking back, because I didn't see psychologists. There was no police report, no medical report, nothing. It was just, this is not to be talked about. This is done.
That's it.
And so when I started working, and one of the things that Arjun said is like, hey, go to therapy. You got to go to therapy. Have you ever talked about this with anybody? And I'm like, no, because I don't need to. Right? And he goes, well, you probably should talk to somebody. And so at this point, argument had kind of gained my trust. And I'm like, all right, if this guy's telling me to go to therapy, but again, my attitude is very much like, fine, whatever. I'll go because you're telling me. So you see that I will do it, but really. So I go. And the therapy sessions aren't necessarily special, but it got me to start talking about this. And it's just like, gosh, you start feeling so much better, and your my sense of self-worth start going up. And so then I can get into meetings and not be dealing about price. I am not longer the cheapest lawyer. I'm probably not the most expensive either, but I'm closer to a more valuable one. And I think that my value is there. And once I got that, my businesses start thriving. I mean, it just did. But there was so many fear barriers that I had to go through. Another thing is I was doing everything. Right? We call it door lock, right? I was doing estate planning, landlord tenant, personal injury, immigration, bankruptcy, family, whatever came through that door, we would do. It was through them that was like, no, we're gonna niche. What do you like? And so once I said in immigration, it exploded. And it was just so interesting because it was such a scarcity, right? A lot of it is like, I can't tell you how many times I was not about, I had like 2 staff members and I was worried about making payroll. And a estate plan showed up out of the blue. And I was like, oh, this saved the day, right? And having to say no to a lot of my referrals and to all of my clients and say, I'm just going to do this. It was very scary. But boy, it's been one of the best decisions.
So fast forward, how long did it take you to get to $1 million from bankruptcy?
So we broke the first million in about, so that would have been 2017. It would have been 7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
That's astounding. That's absolutely amazing.
But from that to 10 million, it took 36 months.
36 months, right? That's what I was going to ask next.
Because it just that, and now it's just absolutely just going crazy. And I think it's not going crazy. It's just going in the right direction because it's all set up there. The machine was built. We learned this, but the mindset was really what it was just all over. And
well, you're the epitome of the American dream. Like you did it. You came from somewhere else. You applied yourself. You had a dream. You did whatever it would take to get it. And you continued learning too. You realized that just because you got this law degree, that was really the beginning, right? That's how you had to get to the starting line just to get in there and to compete with everything else that was happening, right? So then you come to this amazing book. It is folks, you got to get this book. The stories in it are absolutely incredible. What got you to write this book? So
what ends up happening is, right, so I started working in immigration, and I work with a lot of communities that more migrant worker, just kind of like Latino communities in different parts of the country. And this whole thing with sexual abuse started really just be pretty prevalent. I mean, there were weeks where I had 14 consultations in a couple of days, 3 days.
Yeah.
And all of them, or a good 90% of them, had sexual abuse on them. Now, when you're an immigrant, you can apply for something called a U visa. So if you're a victim of a crime in the US, and it's a qualifying crime, you could get a U visa, which will then later be able to apply for a green card. So you can fix the status independently of many things, including if you have unlawful presence in the country or you have other issues. A U visa could clear that. The public policy behind this is like, we don't want communities to be targeted, and they can't even call the police because they're afraid of, right, or being deported or something like that. So through U visas, people would come and tell me that they were victims of crime. So there was and my marketing was definitely attracting that. But it's any crime. It could be an assault, it could be robbery, it could be, kidnapping, you name it, right? But the one crime that was coming a lot was sexual abuse. And so I kind of wanted to say, look, what kind of value am I here to give to the world? And then I started really thinking, right, that there is a message in your mess. There mess is part of the message. Your mess is your message, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking, gosh, if I had, and again, I come from a family that are lawyers. These are educated folks. I was able to put myself through school. I have all this, and I had a really hard time in talking about it. I was told not to. It was almost by this really intense exercise that I was kind of pushed to start sharing.
Right.
I felt that it needs to be said. Men typically don't like to talk about these things, especially in my culture. We don't like to do this, and I thought it was important. So because I saw it so much, I felt I have to tell the story, and I have to be able to hopefully inspire others to seek help, to go. It's just the fact of talking in therapy or talking to somebody about your issues is really helpful. And I think we tend to kind of keep them quiet. A lot of people just internally is like, oh, that's on the past, but never really dealt with it in any way. This is why I like the cover of the book has a person going up, and in the middle it kind of has a backpack.
Yeah.
It's like trauma, right? Like once you get so used to that backpack, you don't even see it. Everybody else sees it. Everybody else sees the way you act, the way you do things, right? And you turn around, and some of the issues that I give you that were affecting me, for example, not being able to raise my price. I fought how to manage for so long because I didn't want to do that because it was a value issue. But maybe another one is just I didn't want to delegate. Just my inability to delegate, right? Because why? Because you don't trust anybody. So you got trust issues. Your delegation isn't going to be there. And many individuals have a really hard time delegating things like their email, for example, right? Like people are like, it's my email. It's just sacred. Well, as a lawyer, we delegate our mail. People look at our letters. They sorted them. They scan them. But when it's email, no, that's just me. Interesting, right? Like there's delegation issues or the person with the website or the person who fixes the printers, they would come to fix it, and I would just be watching them like a hawk because I didn't know if they're going to change my password or they're going to break something. That really is limiting in a business scenario because you're not able to just expand.
Yeah.
Right? You're just so
No trust. No trust. Suspicious of everything.
Yeah.
Well, Hector, I mean, it's such an amazing story. I mean, everybody's got to get this book. Prove Them Wrong, One Immigrant's 10-Year Journey from Bankruptcy to Millionaire. The stories will move you. And, you know, it's everybody's story to some degree. And I love what you said about the backpack, because that's, you know, that represents the story that everybody's carrying that holds them back. So, you know, this book's not just for attorneys. It's not just for immigrants. It's for every person that is seeking to start that journey, right? You know, when you're listening to this, you've got the law degree, you know, somewhere in your life, and now it's time to go after it. So I really appreciate you sharing this with me and all of our folks. I'm going to have Brandon put the link in for the book so that everybody can get it. Again, I wanted to say this one more time for those of you that are not on YouTube that are listening to this. Hector Quiroga, Prove Them Wrong, One Immigrant's 10-Year Journey from Bankrupt to Millionaire. Hector, thanks again. It was great having you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind Podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com. I'll see you next week.